National Security Minister Albert Kandapa says he is worried about what he says is the dwindling trust in the judicial system among political parties. Addressing a forum on violent extremism and peace ahead of election 2024, he said sentiments amongst most of the leading political players indicate a depreciating trust in the court to discharge justice in a case of an election dispute. He is therefore calling for a transparent electoral system which can be trusted by all political actors and the citizenry.
Confronted with the threat of electoral violence. And this should not be taken lightly. It has the ability to undermine the beauty of our democracy. Yes, we have succeeded as a country in ensuring a transition of power from one political party to another on more than 2 occasions since the inception of the Fourth Republic. The electoral processes leading to the transitions have not been devoid of pockets of violence. I must acknowledge, however, that the decisions by political parties to resort to the courts to address their grievances over electoral outcomes have aided in preventing a full-blown electoral crisis. The 2024 general elections will certainly test the strength of our democracy. Our ability to prevent electoral violence, given the high stakes involved, where the 2 major political parties appear convinced about their prospects of emerging victorious. That obviously creates a security challenge for me, where I sit. We may, for the first time, experience a situation where none of the major political parties will be willing to explore the courts to address their grievances. And indeed, I've heard some senior people in the political space saying that they have lost faith in the court's ability to address their concerns when it comes to elections. So, this can create a situation that can set the stage for chaos. And it underscores the need for us to build a robust and transparent electoral system where results coming from same will be acceptable by all parties as a way of guaranteeing peace before, during, and after the elections. Of course, instituting measures to insulate the state against the threat of terrorism, taking steps to boost the confidence of the citizenry in the potency of democracy, to yield expected dividends, and implementing mechanisms to uphold the sanctity of the electoral process, to prevent electoral violence, and also preserve the peace and stability of Ghana, to me, should remain the foremost duty of the state.
Well, on his part, co-chair of the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, Reverend Dr. Digby, warned that lessons from the Kenyan uprising are wake-up calls which must not be ignored.
When you see your neighbor's house burning, you must take precaution. The countries that we've mentioned as having the troubles, if you go to those countries, you will see that the troubles have actually created more problems for them. Because all that is necessary for confusion to thrive is lawlessness. So there are similar issues in Ghana. The economic problems, exclusivity or lack of inclusion, corruption, and all these problems, they are all around us. How do we solve them? I think we ought to sit down as a nation, and if I may say, as a civilized nation, as a torchbearer of African unity, pro-democracy, first in everything, that let's put our house in order. If we can do that, then we will see that, yes, let's take the stand that if something is wrong, it is wrong. You don't have to wait for the Gen Z to take over power. Excuse me to say, they are also citizens. And as you learn from Kenya, you learn from all the countries you've mentioned, those who took over and said they are now in charge, they really have no plans for the country. And then other opportunistic elements have joined, and they are plundering and doing the wrong thing. So Ghana should learn. We should begin to have a dialogue that since we have chosen democracy, how do we make it work? That is better for corrupt people to be dealt with and sanctioned, liars, politicians, cheats, to be dealt with, than to spoil our country for us. We cannot, because if they plunder this, if they push this country to the cliff, and bandits and rogues and lawless people take over this country, our children and our children's children, it will end up in refugee camps all over Africa. Is that what we want? If that is not what we want, certainly that's not what we want, we must begin to put our house in order. And we think it is possible. With the media and all of us saying, then we should not pay lip service to peace. But now there must be justice, equality. Inequality is not good. Excluding people is not good. This is wrong. Let's all work towards a peaceful, fair, just country.
Well, joining us for a conversation on this is Mustafa Gbande, who is Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. Also, security analyst Dr. Adam Bona is joining us on this conversation. And also joining us is the Director of Elections for the MPP, Evans Nimako. But let me start with you, Mustafa Gbande. Now, the challenge is that we need to protect our democracy, and the call is on you, politicians, to ensure that we all play our role to safeguard this democracy. What must be done to ensure that all of you are protecting this democracy we have? This is the only one we have, which is the shining example for all of us in Africa.
Good afternoon to you and our cherished listeners. I think that basically the democracy of our country is founded on the foundation of rule of law. And one of the pillars is to have a transparent, credible, free and fair election. But that is the only avenue through which people can reject or endorse the performance of a particular government or the other way around. Okay. Now, when these processes are not transparent, for example, processes of election security are not transparent enough, processes of declaration of results of election, then of course, measuring the tendency and posturing of government in power, then you can clearly say that democracy has been turned upside down. It then gives the victims of such manipulation the right to defend themselves and to ensure that they fight for what is right. Indeed, this is not the first time Ghana is going for an election. Yeah. Particularly an election where we believe that there's hardship, we believe that the government in power had failed, we believe that there's so much corruption. Then it beholds on the president in power to want to comport himself, to want to be measured in the way that he manipulates the system. As we stand today, it is not as if we don't have a judiciary. The judiciary, by way of its constitutional structure, is insulated from political influence. But the people that man the judiciary today, we believe that there's no justice for the people of Ghana. Justice in the judiciary is like a trade in the market where the poor cannot get, but the rich can get. There's no sanctity of justice as far as this judiciary is concerned.
But Gbande, isn't that too much of an extrapolation when in the same judiciary, your party and your party members are still winning cases?
Well, it doesn't take out the case that researchers perception shows that the judiciary as it is today cannot be trusted. The National Security Minister, let's take that every intelligence from our area, intelligence within government, that Ghanaian, hello?
Yeah, one day I'm listening. I can hear you.
The government itself is aware that it has lost touch with the people of Ghana, hence are putting every measure in place to rig an election. And that is where the problem is. The president in power is determined to rig the election. The system they are putting in place is all suggestive of the fact that they want to rig an election.
Which system are you talking about, Mustafa? Which system?
When you, for example, if you look at the Electoral Commission as it states today, the NDC have cried foul of even the way commissioners have been appointed. We have indicated that certain characters that have been appointed onto the commission are politically affiliated, contrary to what the Constitution says. We have made that loud and clear. If you look at the rate at which the security services are being manipulated, as we said today, there is a recruitment that is ongoing at the office of the Minister for Interior, for which security services are not fully involved. The security heads are not fully involved. We are doing so without checking.
Mustafa, you know, you remember the election petition of 2013. At that particular, during that process, the Electoral Commission chairperson then, Dr. Kojo Afari-Gyan, made a profound statement, said, elections are won at the polling stations, right?
That's correct.
So if you believe elections are won at the polling stations, why still fault or still allege that because they are appointing someone to be a commissioner sort of, then that's a system that is to be used in rigging an election?
An election will be won if that election is organized. But when you have the organizers of the election not making sure that the systems are clear enough, network is not functioning properly, machines are not functioning, machines are getting missing, creating suspicion, and then of course, where is the election to be won? If Ghanaians cannot simply walk to go and vote, then we cannot be talking about an election. We can be talking about a skewed process in favor of somebody.
Okay.
You've seen previous registration exercises that we have had in this country. You've seen assembly elections where places will have to be postponed until the following day. You've seen the behavior and conduct of electoral officers. That means that what we are afraid of, that some people are affiliated to political parties, is having a play. You've seen, for example, the Yendi primaries, where the Electoral Commission organized that election, where we caught an officer of the commission from printing ballot papers. Then clearly, these are some of the issues being played out that are the officers of the commission.
Primaries for which party? Primaries for which party?
The MPP primaries in Yendi constituency.
But that's an internal matter, isn't it?
I'm just that it's still the Electoral Commission.
Okay.
The Electoral Commission is the Electoral Commission.
Okay.
The tendency of the commission to rig election in primaries internally, the same commission is going to organize the national election with a more infused appetite to rig.
Okay. All right.
And so if you look again how the security of the election is going to be deployed, one would say that what are the post orders of the security to the election? Are they there to ensure that we do not have infractions whereby in the process of an election, you have other security people without details coming in to do their own things? These are some of the issues that we must be talking about. But
okay, Mustafa, I'm grateful to you because you've brought in the security angle. So let me bring in Dr. Adam Bona, who is a security analyst. Doc, I'm grateful to you for joining. You hear Mustafa there, bring out the issue about security arrangement for the election. What must preoccupy the minds of those who would man the security of elections in December or on December 7th?
Oh, yes, good evening and good evening to my brother Mustafa on the other side. Well, I think what are the preoccupation of those who must man and be mindful of what we are facing on the 7th of December is transparency, fairness, and openness. I mean, transparency would encapsulate everything. We need to know how certain deployments are going to be done. We need to know, as we speak, if you remember 2020, my banter with the EC chair over, early voters, i.e. the security. EC chair shouldn't wait till the last minute when we begin to see names of heads of, in fact, security of this country missing on the electoral roll. I mean, 2020 was a mess. And when I, spoke about it, she wasn't happy and we had a lot of banter on that. I believe that she's learned her lessons and she said she's not going to repeat that, because then if, early voters, we don't have them voting earlier than the rest of us, then what happens is that they are going to be queuing just like us to vote. Then what happens in between the time? It means deployment is going to be something else. And I think one of the things we have articulated, which the Honorable Speaker and Parliament have also, emphasized on, has to do with non-deployment of the military. Non-deployment of the military is something we need to, speak about and ensure that the military is not involved in 2024 elections, because then we know that, and we are told per the protocols, that when the military come in, when there are disturbances, all the others would have to stand down for them to operate. And we are also aware that the military are not trained and given, blunt bullets or given what you call rubber bullets. They are not trained to handle, civilians. They are not trained with riot gear. You don't deploy the military with riot gear.
But okay,
so
if that's the
chances
case,
are that,
the question then is, do we have enough police personnel to handle the election without the involvement of the military?
it's possible. Yes, we should. I mean, we should. We should have, because I know there's been some recruitment that has taken place in the last couple of years. And so unless of course, I believe that the IGP and his men are listening to us, because the IGP is supposed to be the #1 security officer in charge of election security. Unless the IGP has come out to tell us that he and the internal security officers, i.e. immigration, prisons and fire and the rest, with the exception of the military, are not able to, galvanize enough officers within their ranks to police our elections. Because then we don't want a situation where already you have a certain Gen Z movement that is being denied demonstration. We have, Nigeria is in turmoil. And so we don't want a situation where we begin to prepare the grounds for the young people of this country to take advantage of the situation. So as far as I'm concerned, transparency is very, very important, and it has to be all-inclusive. It has to be all-inclusive.
Okay.
This is what I have to say about that.
Okay. All right. So just in 30 seconds, what will be your advice to the police service as we prepare for December 7th?
I think they've already started doing some work. Okay. And we can see the last elections, the superintendent over, including both the MPP, NDC, and, by-elections, we really haven't seen widespread brutalization of violence. And so I would want to urge the IGP, Dr. Kufu Dampare, to be more open as is done, to ensure that the citizen or the rest of us are well informed about our do's and don'ts on election day. The flashpoints should quickly be identified. If additional flashpoints are going to be added, let's know, so that we all can pay extra attention to these areas and see what we can do to, ensure that violence don't take place in these areas like it did happen in Techiman and Odio and other locations.
All right. Doc, I'm grateful to you for joining us. Dr. Adam Bona is a security analyst there. And that's